Hi there. Last time we left you, our house just had roof rafters on it, and it kind of just looked like a big wooden box. So we've done a couple of steps without you guys. Sorry, so I'm going to catch up. First, what we did was we went ahead and put these soffits into the roof in between the rafters. These are right above the top plate of the walls. And the reason for that is we need venting in our roof. Since we won't have an attic, and this is just going to be basically a vaulted ceiling, there needs to be airflow that goes in here. It prevents moisture problems, condensation, things like that. So any point in this roof that is blocked by a piece of wood or whatever needs to have vents in it. So we started that off by cutting these 2x4s to length inside each of the rafters. So they're each a little bit different length because they kind of get wiggled around when you nail them in. So we just started at one side and numbered them, measured, and cut them to length. Actually, we didn't number. I should have numbered. What I did was I went alphabetically and I gave them old person names like Alvin and Laverne and Maud and Opal and Pearl because Kevin left me alone, and that's what happens. So then I put all of the old people into place. Kenneth went on his spot and Laverne went in her spot. We had to put 2 holes for vents in each of these. So there's a little plastic round cap on the outside here that is vented. And then we put this screening behind it. I think this is fiberglass screening. This is just some extra bug protection. So what we had to do was drill out a 2-inch hole for each of these, and we did that with one of these crazy hole saw things at first, and that was terrible. You would use something like this for like if you're drilling a hole for a doorknob or something. It's fine to go through like fiberglass or a little metal or one piece of wood one time, but there were 48 of these holes in this house. So this was awful. It pretty much just like burned through the wood. It's just like this little cup here, so there's nowhere for the wood to go. You're basically just popping out like a cork of wood, and it was just eating up drill batteries, and it was terrible. So what we eventually did was went down to the local hardware store and bought one of these bits. I don't know what this is called, but it has like this kind of scoop here that when it drills, it just throws wood it looks like pencil shavings out of the hole, and this was much faster. $42 for this sucker. Totally worth it, but like that's almost $1 a hole. That was crazy. So if you're building a tiny house, don't buy one of these. Call me, I'll send you ours. Anyway, so we drilled these out, and we actually had to use a sander to bore them out a little bit more because with this screen behind those caps, they didn't fit in all that well. So we kind of jammed them in there. Used a little bit of glue to stick them in, and then we glued and nailed these suckers into place. Since we need to keep that venting in mind all the way up, when we got up to this little like baffle board piece, this is just there's a seam in the plywood here, so there's one whole sheet of 4x8 plywood that comes all the way up to this backer. And then there's a little bit more roof than that, so there's maybe 18 inches on top of it. So that plywood seam needed something to nail into. But anytime we stop this airflow, we have to drill some holes in it. So Kevin used a table saw to kind of bore out some slits, basically, in this board, so that when the insulation goes in, we'll put some furring strips here so it can't go all the way up. And that'll allow air to flow all the way up to the top and out through the top of the roof. There's a little bit of gap between the top of the plywood and the ridge beam. That's going to be covered by the ridge cap, but it'll still allow air to flow up and through that space. So once all that was in place, we were able to start putting the sheathing on the roof. And we did that with some subfloor glue first, just like we did with the walls. We put glue on everything first just to give it some extra stability since it's going to drive down the road, and nailed them in.